Back, the Duncan Police Department is looking for family members of an officer killed in the line of duty in 1939. Officer Charleu Smith was shot and killed by a man he arrested nearly 80 years ago. Fox Carolina's Margaret Burnquist is here in the studio with us. So, Margaret, the timing is important here because Officer Smith is set to be inducted into the South Carolina Criminal Justice Hall of Fame, right?
That's right, Diana. The Duncan police chief and local history buffs are all hoping that a family member can be identified in time to be invited and recognized at that Hall of Fame induction ceremony coming up on May 1st. In the cemetery behind Duncan First Baptist Church is the grave of Charleu Smith, a Duncan police officer killed in the line of duty in 1939.
Of course, it's a very old tombstone, but got the date on there and his name.
It also tells us Officer Smith was a water tender first class with the U.S. Navy during World War I.
I like history a lot, but I've never done anything like this before.
Duncan Police Chief Carl Long and others have been scouring old newspaper articles, court documents, and census information, trying to track down living relatives of Smith, who may or may not know what happened on June 23rd, 80 years ago.
It's actually an interesting story. It happened right across from our town hall, almost, at a coal yard that used to be there.
Chief Long says Officer Smith arrested a man that morning for drunkenness and transported him to jail, asking that he be kept there until he sobered up. Newspaper articles say Officer Smith even instructed that the man be given a good dinner, which he would pay for. But later that day, the man was released and he found Officer Smith talking to a deputy sheriff in front of the old Duncan post office.
He came up and asked to speak to Officer Smith. So he got Officer Smith to walk with him, which was maybe 100 yards down the road. And then when he walked down there with him, he had a shotgun that was propped up by his door, and he shot him in the leg, and he bled out.
47-year-old Charleu Smith reportedly died on his way to the hospital, leaving behind 5 children. And Chief Long says finding any of his descendants would help keep this piece of history alive.
Being that it's so old, you don't know what it would mean for them, but I think it would be pretty special that their relative was finally recognized.
There have been a lot of challenges in finding Officer Charleu Smith's family members along with the passage of time. Smith is a very common name, obviously, and different documents even have the first name Charlie spelled differently. Also, the church where Officer Smith is buried lost its records in a fire years ago. So if you happen to know anything about Officer Smith's living relatives, you are asked to contact the Duncan Police Department. Diana, back to you.